In this fast-paced life, all of us have probably paused at some point and asked ourselves, what truly makes me happy? Is it a bigger house, a better car, or a bank account so full we'd never have to worry again? Yet somehow we come across people who seem genuinely content amidst hardship. They own little, yet carry a calm smile. They have no riches, no status, but their minds are free. Meanwhile, others who seem to have it all often feel empty, anxious or angry at the world. The difference doesn't lie in the circumstances, but in how we perceive them. This is the truth the Stoic philosophers understood thousands of years ago. If you want to live peacefully, don't try to change the world, train your mind instead. Learn to see the good, even when things fall apart. And today, we're going to explore exactly how to do that through the timeless stories and powerful insights of Stoicism. 1. Happiness does not come from material possessions. What does it truly take to be happy? Is happiness a luxury home, an expensive car, or a bank account overflowing with zeros? It is easy, almost natural, to equate happiness with the tangible things we can possess and display. From a young age, society teaches us to chase after visible success, the house, the car, the job, the lifestyle. Billboards, social media, and casual conversations reinforce the idea that happiness is just one more purchase away. But deep down, we sense that there's something missing in this narrative. Why is it that some people, with far less than what we have, still radiate a sense of peace and contentment, while others, seemingly having everything, live burdened by restlessness and discontent? To answer this, we must examine not just what happiness is, but where it actually comes from. Too often, we fall into the trap of believing that changing our external circumstances will bring us joy. We tell ourselves, if only I had a bigger house, I'd be happier. Or if I drove that car, wore those clothes, or could travel like those people, I would finally be content. But this pursuit is endless. There's always a new model, a trendier gadget, a better destination. The finish line keeps moving, and the satisfaction we seek slips further away each time we reach for it. Even when we achieve some of these goals, the thrill fades quickly. The new house becomes just the place we live. The car loses its shine, both literally and metaphorically. The excitement of a purchase or achievement dissolves into the background noise of our daily routine, leaving us once again longing for something more, something else. This is the cycle that traps so many people, a cycle of constant craving and fleeting fulfillment. But happiness, true and enduring happiness, cannot be bought or acquired from the outside. It is not the product of favorable circumstances or material success. This truth sits at the heart of Stoic philosophy, a perspective that has inspired countless individuals across generations to look beyond possessions for a deeper, more resilient form of happiness. The Stoics, living centuries ago in a world that was in many ways as uncertain as ours, recognized that external goods are always precarious. They can be lost, stolen, or destroyed. Markets crash, homes burn, fortunes disappear overnight. If our happiness is tied to such impermanent things, it will be as unstable as they are. Instead, the Stoics urge us to look inward, to the only domain we truly control, our own mind, our own perceptions, and the judgments we form about our circumstances. Consider the words of the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This insight is as revolutionary today as it was in ancient Rome. What Epictetus points out is that our sense of wealth, and by extension our happiness, depends less on what we own and more on our attitude toward what we own. When we always want more, no amount is enough. But when we master our desires and learn to want less, even the simplest things become sources of joy. The difference then is not in what we have, but in how we think about what we have. This principle is easy to understand, yet challenging to live by, because it requires a radical shift in our relationship with the world. We are conditioned to measure our worth and our well-being against the yardstick of possessions and status. But the Stoic path calls us to step off that treadmill and reconsider what really matters. It asks us to cultivate gratitude for what we already possess and to recognize the abundance that surrounds us, even in the absence of luxury. Let's return to the question, what do we really need to be happy? We may believe that comfort and convenience guarantee satisfaction, but history and experience show otherwise. Some of the world's happiest people live in modest conditions, in small homes filled with laughter rather than expensive things. Others, despite all outward signs of success, are tormented by anxiety and an insatiable hunger for more. The difference is not in the furniture or the size of the house, but in the quality of the mind that inhabits it. The Stoics understood that external circumstances can only ever be temporary, and that our inner life is what endures. Happiness, then, is not about acquiring, but about appreciating. It is not about amassing, but about accepting. When we learn to see the good in what we have, rather than obsessing over what we lack, we free ourselves from the tyranny of comparison and desire. Yet, it is not enough to simply dismiss material things as irrelevant. The Stoics were not ascetics who rejected all comfort and pleasure. Rather, they taught us to see possessions for what they truly are, indifferent. They can be enjoyed, but they must never become our masters. Our happiness should never be hostage to the state of our bank account, the latest gadget, or the approval of others. When we make our peace dependent on what lies outside of us, we surrender our freedom and expose ourselves to endless disappointment. Instead, the Stoic way is to build happiness on the foundation of what cannot be taken from us: our values, our character, our ability to choose our response to whatever happens. We may lose everything we own, but as long as we retain the ability to direct our thoughts, to shape our judgments, and to maintain our integrity, we possess something more precious than any treasure: our own tranquility. But how do we put this wisdom into practice? How do we train our minds to see the good, especially when circumstances seem unfavorable? The first step is to become aware of how often we let our happiness depend on things outside of our control. Notice the moments when your mood shifts because of something you cannot change: a disappointing conversation, a rainy day, or a cancelled plan. Recognize that these reactions are learned habits, not unbreakable laws. The Stoics invite us to question these habits. Why should our peace be disturbed by the weather, or by someone else's opinion, or by the fluctuation of markets? These things are beyond our power. What remains within our power is our own attitude. If we can meet challenges with equanimity, if we can look for meaning even in adversity, we transform every situation into an opportunity for growth. This is not to deny the reality of pain, loss, or frustration. Life will always present us with difficulties. The Stoic approach is not one of cold detachment, but of courageous acceptance. It acknowledges that hardship is inevitable, but insists that our response is what defines us. By focusing on what we can control, our thoughts, our actions, our values, we build a foundation for happiness that no storm can wash away. Moreover, this approach frees us from dependence on external validation. Many people rely on their family, friends, and even strangers to feel good about themselves. They chase compliments and approval, fearing criticism and rejection. But if happiness depends on the shifting moods and judgments of others, it will always be fragile. The Stoics remind us that true self-worth comes from within, from living according to our principles and honoring our commitments to ourselves. Over time, as we practice this inner discipline, we discover a quiet strength. We become less reactive, less anxious, and more present. We learn to appreciate simple joys, a kind word, a moment of calm, and the beauty of nature. Our lives become richer, not because we have more, but because we see more clearly the value in what is already there. Ultimately, happiness is not a destination reached by accumulating enough things or favorable circumstances. It is a way of moving through the world, a habit of mind, cultivated by attention, reflection, and conscious choice. The material world will always be unpredictable and uncontrollable. What we can always control is how we relate to it. So, the next time you find yourself wishing for something more, another possession, another achievement, another mark of success, pause and ask, is this what I truly need to be happy? Or can I find contentment right here, right now, with what I have? The answer, the Stoics teach, is always within our grasp. As Epictetus reminds us, happiness is not about having much, but about needing little. When we understand and embrace this truth, we step off the endless treadmill of desire and step into a deeper, more lasting peace. This is the secret that so many overlook, but that is available to anyone willing to look within. Train your mind to see the good in any situation, and you will discover a happiness that cannot be shaken by the winds of fortune. 2. Comparing attitudes between groups of people. Life presents itself to each of us as a ceaseless series of moments, some bright and easy, others clouded and difficult. What is remarkable and yet rarely discussed is how differently people experience these same moments. There are those who appear to glide through challenges, unruffled by what the world hurls at them, carrying a quiet optimism that does not waver even in stormy times. And then there are others whose moods swing wildly, dictated by the ebb and flow of fortune, whose joy seems only to emerge when the sun is shining and all goes as planned. The ancient Stoics would have seen this contrast as fundamental to understanding human happiness. They would have pointed out that our well-being depends less on what happens to us and far more on how we choose to see what happens. This is not a call to naive optimism or to turn away from pain, but a challenge to build an inner resilience, a steadfastness that allows us to shape our inner weather, regardless of external storms. Consider the phrase, "Some people carry their own weather." It sounds poetic, even whimsical, but it cuts straight to the core of the Stoic mindset. There are people who, no matter what is going on around them, seem to walk through life with their own inner climate of calm and good humor. Their attitude is not hostage to circumstance. Whether rain or shine, success or setback, they choose the lens through which they view the world. Contrast this with a more common approach, captured so perfectly in a familiar cultural story, the tale of TG1 Fridays. In America, Fridays are celebrated as the finish line of a hard week, the start of freedom, fun, and the permission to finally relax. People count down the hours to the end of the workday, eager for release. Fridays are bright and happy, filled with laughter and anticipation. But come Monday, the mood shifts drastically. Social media groans with complaints. Oh God, it's Monday. There is collective dread, as if happiness were packed away for the next 5 days, to be reopened only when the weekend returns. This rhythm is so embedded in culture that it barely registers as strange. Yet the message is clear. Joy is something granted by the calendar, by external events, by things beyond our control. Happiness, in this model, is reactive. We wait for the right moment, for circumstances to arrange themselves just so, before we allow ourselves to feel good. But what if we flipped this idea on its head? What if, instead of being at the mercy of the weather outside of Fridays and Mondays, promotions and setbacks, sunshine and rain, we realized that we are always free to shape our response? The Stoics would argue that this shift in perspective is not only possible, but necessary for a life of real peace. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, expressed this powerfully. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This single sentence is a compass for the entire Stoic worldview. The world is unpredictable. There will always be Mondays, with their grind and their gloom. Disappointments, losses, and unexpected turns are not exceptions to the rule. They are the rule. And yet, within that truth, we discover something extraordinary: the freedom to decide what these moments will mean to us. Returning to our TGI Fridays example, it's tempting to laugh at the idea that a day of the week could have such power over our mood. But this is not about Fridays or Mondays at all. It's about a larger tendency. How often do we postpone joy, waiting for life to become easier or more convenient before we allow ourselves to be happy? How often do we give our power away to the shifting winds of fortune, rather than learning to cultivate a steady flame within? Some people, perhaps the majority, move through life this way, experiencing happiness as something that comes and goes, bestowed and withdrawn by circumstances. But then there are the others, the rare few, who seem to have learned a secret. They do not deny hardship or pretend that everything is always perfect. Instead, they have trained their minds to search out the good, even in difficult situations. They have chosen to carry their own weather, refusing to let the external world dictate the terms of their inner life. This ability is not innate. It is learned, practiced, forged in the fire of self-reflection and conscious effort. It begins with a simple realization: most of the things that happen to us are beyond our control. We cannot decide when a storm will come, when a loved one will disappoint us, or when a plan will fall apart. But we can always decide what story we will tell ourselves about these events. To see the good in any situation is not to deny reality, nor to sugarcoat pain. It is instead a radical act of courage, a willingness to look at life honestly, to face difficulty squarely, and yet to insist that something valuable can be found even here. This is what sets apart those who carry their own weather. Their joy is not shallow or dependent on luck. It is built on the sturdy foundation of perspective, of choosing to find meaning where others see only misery. Of course, this is easier said than done. the world will offer endless invitations to resentment and complaint. The habit of blaming circumstances is seductive. When we are caught in traffic, when our plans are derailed, when Mondays arrive with their familiar weight, it is so natural to sigh and wish for things to be different. But the Stoic response is different. It asks us to pause, to notice our own reactions and to ask, is this worth giving up my peace for? What good might be hiding here if I have the courage to look for it? Imagine a life where you are no longer a hostage to external events, where you wake up on Monday with the same calm as on Friday, knowing that your well-being does not depend on the day of the week or on whether things go your way. This is not a life without pain or difficulty, but a life in which those challenges are met with strength and clarity. It is a life of freedom because you have reclaimed the power to decide what things mean to you. This is the heart of Stoic training, not to control the world, but to master ourselves. To recognize that the mind, like a muscle, can be strengthened with use. The more we practice choosing our response, the easier it becomes to find the good, even in small and ordinary moments. Over time, this practice transforms not only how we feel, but who we are. Those who carry their own weather are not special or superhuman. They are people who have chosen, again and again, to focus on what they can control: their thoughts, their actions, their perspective. They have stopped waiting for the perfect day, the perfect job, the perfect relationship to bring them peace. Instead, they create peace wherever they are, whatever is happening. We can all learn from their example. The invitation is simple, but it is not easy. Train your mind. Notice your thoughts. When you catch yourself blaming the world or resenting what you cannot change, pause. As we begin to practice this, we may be surprised at what changes. Mondays lose their sting. Disappointments become opportunities. The world grows less threatening, and life feels less like something happening to us, and more like something we are shaping from within. In the end, the difference between people is not how lucky they are or how easy their lives have been. The difference is in attitude toward the weather they carry. Most wait for Fridays. The wise learn to find sunlight every day, to become the source of their own calm, their own hope, their own joy. This is the path the Stoics offer us. It is not easy, and it will never be finished. But each moment we choose to shape our response, to find the good where others see only loss, we become a little freer, a little stronger. In this way, we train our minds to see the world not as a series of threats, but as a landscape full of meaning, waiting for us to decide what kind of weather we will carry, no matter the storm. 3. Difficulty controlling the outside world. One of the greatest illusions that quietly governs our daily lives is the belief that happiness lies somewhere outside ourselves. Many people move through life unconsciously waiting for the world or other people to change before allowing themselves to be at peace. They tell themselves, if only my boss were more understanding, if my parents stopped nagging, if my partner would listen more, then I could finally relax, finally feel content. This expectation, so common yet so invisible, slowly breeds frustration, disappointment, and even resentment. We see this dynamic everywhere: in the frustrated worker, constantly complaining about an unfair manager; in the child, hoping that stricter parents will suddenly become gentle; or in the spouse, endlessly wishing their partner would finally change that one habit that's so hard to tolerate. The hope is always for the outside to bend, for others to evolve, so that inner peace can finally take root. Yet, as countless Stoic philosophers remind us, such hope is not only unwise, it is a guarantee for lifelong turmoil. The reality is both sobering and liberating. We cannot control the outside world, not people, not events, not the weather or the tides of fortune. The sooner we accept this, the more freedom we will find. It is only by turning inward, by shifting our focus from what lies outside our reach to what lies within our grasp, that we begin to discover a quieter, more resilient kind of happiness. Let's take a closer look at this principle through the story of Emma and Daniel, a married couple whose relationship became a subtle battleground of unmet expectations and simmering frustrations. Emma, like so many, believed that happiness at home depended on Daniel changing certain habits. His forgetfulness, his way of handling disagreements, his reluctance to express feelings. Emma found herself constantly irritated, thinking, if only he would change, I could finally feel at peace in this marriage. She started to complain to friends and family, replaying the same list of grievances, waiting for the day when Daniel would somehow become a different person. One evening, after another unresolved argument, Daniel quietly said, "Emma, if you truly want peace, try to accept what you cannot change. You can't change other people, not even the people you love the most." For a moment, Emma resisted these words. It felt unfair. Why should she be the one to change? Why shouldn't Daniel simply adapt, or at least try harder? But as the days passed, his words echoed in her mind, and she began to notice how much of her distress was rooted not in Daniel's behavior, but in her struggle to control it. It was here that the wisdom of the Stoics comes to life, reminding us that the only real power we possess is over ourselves, our own thoughts, judgments, and responses. Epictetus, a renowned Stoic philosopher, once said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." This single sentence, so simple on the surface, holds the key to emotional liberation. It tells us, yes, the world is unpredictable and other people are impossible to control. But our minds, our interpretations, our choices, our focus belong to us. The less we fixate on trying to change what lies outside, the more we unlock the ability to shape our inner world. Consider what happens when we ignore this lesson. We become trapped in a cycle of frustration. The more we try to manipulate or force the people around us, hoping for a partner to love us differently, for a boss to recognize our worth, for friends to never disappoint, the more we suffer. Our happiness becomes hostage to other people's moods, behaviors, and decisions. We lose touch with our own agency, always waiting for something external to shift before we can feel okay. Rather than seeking to control the uncontrollable, we learn to accept it. Acceptance, however, is not the same as resignation. It is not about giving up, nor is it an excuse for passivity or enduring harm. Instead, acceptance is an act of profound courage and clarity. It's looking honestly at reality and saying, "This is what is, not what I wish it to be. What can I do with what I have? How can I respond wisely, with dignity and self-respect, even if nothing outside of me changes?" Returning to Emma's story, as she gradually shifted her attention inward, something remarkable happened. The daily irritations that once consumed her began to lose their grip. She started to notice her own triggers, her patterns of thought, and the expectations that fueled her disappointment. She learned to communicate with Daniel not from a place of accusation, but from understanding. Instead of demanding that he change, she focused on managing her own reactions, setting boundaries when needed, and cultivating gratitude for the things he did well. Over time, their relationship softened. Daniel, sensing Emma's new calmness and lack of blame, felt safer to open up, to listen, and even to make small changes, not because he was forced, but because the atmosphere between them had shifted. Emma's peace no longer depended on Daniel's perfection. It came from her own clarity and self-mastery. The Stoics teach that true strength lies not in controlling the world, but in controlling our response to it. This is why Marcus Aurelius, another great Stoic, kept reminding himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Every day, life will give us countless situations we cannot control. People will disappoint us. Circumstances will shift. The only question is, what story do we tell ourselves about those events? Do we see ourselves as powerless victims, endlessly battered by a world that refuses to change for us? Or do we accept reality as it is, focus on our own growth, and train our minds to see, even in disappointment, an opportunity to practice patience, wisdom, and compassion? In the end, most people spend their lives waiting for the world to be different, never realizing that their deepest peace was always just one change away, the change in how they see, interpret, and respond to the world itself. This is the lesson 99% of us overlook, but the one the Stoics have handed down for centuries, a lesson that, once understood and embraced, has the power to transform even the most difficult circumstances into a source of inner strength and quiet joy. 4. The power of attitude and perspective. There is a truth so simple and so profound that most people, in their rush through life, never quite realize it. Our attitude, the way we choose to see the world, can shape our reality far more than any circumstance ever could. A positive mindset has the power to transform hell into heaven, or just as easily, turn paradise into suffering. This is not merely poetic exaggeration, but a deep psychological and philosophical fact, one that the Stoics understood centuries ago, and that modern psychology continues to affirm. To illustrate this, imagine two patients sharing a hospital room. Both are seriously ill, confined to their beds, and both yearn for a glimpse of the world beyond their small, sterile quarters. One bed is positioned next to the room's only window, while the other patient lies further away, unable to see outside. Every afternoon, the patient by the window would describe in vivid detail everything he could see: the sunlight pouring over a lush green park, children playing with their kites, lovers strolling hand in hand, and the cherry blossom trees dancing gently in the breeze. His descriptions were so alive, so full of color and hope, that for a while both men could almost forget the weight of their suffering. The man farther from the window listened each day with a bitter-sweet longing. At first, the stories gave him comfort, lifting his spirits and painting hope in the grey routine of illness. But over time, something changed. The more he listened, the more he began to resent his friend's fortune, the unfairness of being denied the view, the beauty, the chance to escape, even for a moment. His thoughts soured. Envy grew where gratitude had once been, and with every passing day, bitterness took deeper root. His mind became a prison more suffocating than his failing body. Then, one day, the patient by the window died, With barely contained anticipation, the surviving patient asked to be moved to the window, longing finally to see the outside world for himself. The nurses granted his wish and, with great effort, propped him up so he could look outside. But what he saw stunned him to silence. There was no park, no trees, no children, no lovers, only a blank brick wall, staring back, cold and unmoved. It dawned on him, with a sense of profound loss, that all those beautiful scenes had been born not from reality, but from the imagination, the kindness, and the perspective of his late friend. This simple story reveals a hidden engine of human happiness. Our attitude and perspective color everything we experience. They can turn emptiness into fullness, lack into abundance, and even pain into meaning. What the patient by the window possessed was not a superior view, but a superior mind, a mind trained to find beauty even where others saw only limitation. This is the essence of the Stoic path. The Stoics believed that life itself is neither good nor bad. What matters is how we respond to it. As Epictetus, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers, wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." These words, though deceptively simple, are the cornerstone of true resilience. Epictetus understood that we are not at the mercy of fortune, nor are we defined by our setbacks or successes. Instead, we hold the power to choose our response, to turn adversity into strength, sorrow into wisdom, and emptiness into creation. Reflecting on this, it's clear why so many people spend their lives chasing after external things, money, status, possessions, only to find themselves restless, dissatisfied, or anxious, no matter how much they acquire. They forget that happiness is not found in the accumulation of things, but in the cultivation of the mind. The world outside may be filled with challenges, disappointments, even suffering, but within each of us lies the freedom to choose what meaning we give to every moment. Returning to the story, the patient by the window did not deny his own suffering or pretend that his situation was ideal. Rather, he exercised a subtle but profound skill. He focused his attention on what beauty remained, however small or imagined, and used it to sustain both himself and his friend. In doing so, he transformed a shared hardship into a space of hope. Meanwhile, the other patient, lost in resentment, allowed his focus to narrow and darken until all he could see was deprivation. There is a lesson here for all of us, especially in times of adversity. It is easy to fall into the trap of believing that if only our circumstances were different, we could be happy. Yet life, with its unpredictability and imperfection, will always bring new challenges. The Stoics teach us to turn inward, to cultivate an attitude that is open, resilient, and creative, even when the view outside is just a blank wall. They urge us to look for the good, to find meaning, and to recognize that every experience, pleasant or painful, offers the raw material for growth. In practical terms, this means asking ourselves, even in the midst of difficulty, what can I learn from this? Where is the opportunity in this setback? How can I use this moment to become wiser, more compassionate, more grounded? These are not just comforting questions. They are tools that shape the very structure of our minds. As you move through your own life, remember that your attitude is the lens through which the world comes into focus. You have the power to color your experience with hope or with despair, with gratitude or with resentment. The choice is always yours, and it is a choice you can make anew in every moment. So, let us train our minds to see the good in every situation. Not because every situation is good, but because the mind that sees good creates good. And in that practice, we discover a source of happiness, freedom, and strength that no external circumstance can ever take away. Stoic philosophy reminds us, it's not your circumstances that create joy or sorrow, it's your attitude and your perspective. When you train your mind to always see the good, no matter what life throws at you, every day becomes a day worth living. True happiness is the ability to carry your own sunshine, even when storms are raging outside. If today's video gave you a new perspective or a moment of inspiration, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world and helps us spread these powerful ideas to more people seeking inner strength and peace. And remember, this is just the beginning. Check out the next videos appearing at the end of this one for even more timeless Stoic wisdom. Stay strong, stay mindful, and I'll see you in the next episode.